Good evening and welcome to the Chrissy B Show. How can you give your children a great start in life? What can you teach them while they're young that can equip them for success and well-being in the future? If you're a parent, this show is going to be great for you and will give you some handy hints to help your kids. We're going to be looking at 3 very important areas with a guest to give some advice about each area. To talk about teaching kids about money, we have Lara Morgan, who's a mother of 3 and a successful entrepreneur. To talk about your child's safety on the streets, we have Claire Scott-Dryden, founder of Child Alert, and we have Claire Sweeney, a person that's actually training to be a nanny, who will be speaking about etiquette and manners. And later on, we have our places to visit, where Barbara and I visited our childhood at the Toy Museum, and we got into a bit of mischief there, actually. But first of all, let's introduce my first guest, and that's Lara Morgan. Good evening, Lara. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So tell us a bit about what you do.
I've been very lucky. I fell into business because I needed a job when I was quite young. I was 23 when I started my first company.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Very young.
I mean, yeah, very young. And got out of that in 2008, so 3 years ago, nearly 4. And since then, I'm very much a voice for the importance of enterprise in education. And I think there's lots that we can do to help, if you like, improve our country's opportunities by bringing enterprise at an earlier stage, and also by supporting the growth enterprise companies that we really need to deliver to help us out of the problems we're in.
Okay, but how do you actually manage to have 3 kids, because your children are quite young, and be an entrepreneur and do all that you're doing? How do you cope with everything?
I'm brutally honest about this. I think it is a tall order, and there's no way I could have done it without great support from a wonderful husband and also a world-class nanny in my case.
Yeah.
And my nanny stayed with me for 11 years. So that was the backbone of our family unit, if you like, that group. And then the other side is, you know, I absolutely loved what I did. I sold luxury toiletries around the world. I travelled. What a privilege. I had the most amazing team of people helping me build the business, and we did it by hook or by crook. And you know, I look back now and I think, you know, how did we do it? And the truth is, it's never balanced. I was either guilty about not being at home, and that is the truth, you know, or I was guilty about not being at work. And something always gives. So either my fitness or the time with the children. So I think female entrepreneurs have to be honest.
That is very honest, though, because a lot say, oh yeah, I tried to find the balance, but
it's rubbish.
You can't.
I'm sorry. In my case,
you can't.
no can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about how you teach your children about money, because it's sometimes, you know, parents have a lot of questions about this because they're not sure, for example, when to give pocket money, how to educate their kids about budgeting, all that kind of stuff. So how did you...
I'm very lucky. I think I have my parents to rest upon in terms of the way they educated us from an early age. So we were brought up and we opened our first bank account when we were young. My grandparents actually had savings plans for us, and we knew that they put a £5 note into that savings plan once a year on our birthday, and that was a book that we could look at. And I mean, I look back and remembered at the age of 18, my grandfather saying to me, you know, that is your money.
Right.
So, you know, and it wasn't a huge amount, but all the way along those 18 years, I'd sort of had a part, but not been able to touch it. In my parents' case, we had to earn our pocket money. So my children have to earn their pocket money. And, you know, horses for courses. I've got an 8 and a 11 and a 14-year-old, and they'll do different things because they're capable of doing things. But I also am...
So if they don't do their homework, for example, or do you not give...
It's not... For me, there are certain things about being in a family. So, and I think it's really important not to do deals around if you don't do this, I won't do that, to some extent. So, for example, I expect my kids to lay the table, I expect them to hang their towels up, I expect them to make their beds. Those are just being in a family things, right? That's not, you know, that's not related to pocket money, but actually they know that I will say, if you have not done what you know you need to do, then I will say, look, you're not getting pocket money this week. So there is
Does it work?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, you know, risk in business, you have to reward good performance, don't you? Well, that's life. You know, you do well, you gain. And whether that's financial or celebratory or a large chocolate bar in my case, you know, because we're all human, we need little things to boost. So from an early age, I think you teach your child the numbers thing, as in the money. And then I think most importantly, it's not the money itself, it's the saving and the value. And as they get older, I mean, I was laughing earlier thinking about this program because I had an exchange with my 14-year-old over, she wanted to buy something expensive and branded, and she could have bought 5 of something else, which was unbranded, you know, and we have the conversation, and then she has to make the decision, because ultimately she's now got a small budget, which allows her to choose some of the things.
Yeah.
But it's her choice, so she might end up with 1 and she might end up with 5.
You're yet to find out.
Correct.
Okay, let's take a couple of questions from our viewers as well. If you want to ask a question about anything that we're talking about this evening, you can email on chris@chrissybshow.tv, and you can also call actually 020 7686 6300. Let's go to Mila with the first question.
Okay, Yoli from Hammersmith asks, is it wrong to tell your kids all the time, I won't buy that because I don't have money? My daughter has now started picking up coins from the floor. And she always says, I'll give it to my mum because she doesn't have money. I stopped saying that now. I just say no, without explanation. Does that affect children in any way? I don't want her to think that money's everything. Thank you.
So,
What do you think?
money isn't everything, is it? There's much more to life.
But we need it.
And yet we have to appreciate that actually we should all want to contribute and to pay our way and to stand on our own 2 feet. And I think, you know, that is just part of being proud and contributing to society. In terms of picking up money, it makes me laugh, because if I see a 1p coin, you know, find a penny, pick it up, and all day you'll have good luck. So I think that's irrelevant. I think how you say, I have no money, is very important.
Right.
You know, so you might be better off thinking about, we're working very hard to earn the things that we have, and therefore there are some things we need and some things we want, and defining the difference between, do we really need this, or actually is it just a want? I think that's a really important point of difference when
And I think kids actually do understand if you sit down and explain to them, look, we can't get this right now, or we like you just said, I think we need to give them more credit sometimes.
And they are bright.
Because,
Okay, so if you're going to be an example, you know, my child wanted new school shoes with a couple of weeks of term left. And I said, Tamsin, make them last. And we have to teach our children to understand that, you know, you've then got X many weeks of summer holiday. So this week we went and bought nice school shoes. And we haven't wasted 2 months of growth. And I know that sounds probably practical and mean, but actually that's a lesson in value of what does money buy, how can you make it last.
Do you think parents should restrict what their kids spend their money on, their pocket money? So say, like, if they're just going to go and blow it all on something that's not useful, for example.
Okay, so I think in the end, if they've earned that money, that's their money. But I think the parent and the child have to have the relationship where you're learning, actually, do you know what? If you saved up, you might have a better one. And the only way I've found to incentivise, if you like, that it's worth making the saving, and I read some stuff about it, is actually, if I save, I might add something like an interest payment to them because they save the money. So I am teaching them, not only does money have an initial value, but the compound interest. And actually that's a business thing, isn't it? That if you have cash in the bank, you can earn money.
Yeah.
So again, I think, you know, in the end, it's also a decision-making and learning thing, that if they want to blow it, actually, in my experience, if they do blow it, they tend to regret it. But maybe that's a lesson they also need to learn. We can't protect them from everything. And they've got to learn to make their own choices.
That's true. So with like the younger kids, for example, I know sometimes it's quite hard to sort of explain to them about money and things like that. How do you go about, if it's like, for example, sort of 4 or 5 year old, how would you educate them about working, for example, about the importance of working and not
in my case, that was very easy because I spent a lot of time away from home building the business. And literally, my children will play back to me, you know, you're not here. No, I'm out earning a living so that we can afford to do these nice things. So actually, that's the quid pro quo, that the sacrifice a parent sometimes makes, which is, you know, no, we can't go to that nice place on holiday because we can't afford to. We just don't have that income or whatever it is. But I was trying to think today, when did Tamsin even learn her coins? And I think, you know, that is a basic important thing. And then giving a child a purse, but actually getting them to treat it with respect, because that's, you know, that's the holder of the money, and whether it's a bank account or a purse. You know, I said to Tamsin the other day, look after your purse. And actually, if you leave it around, your sisters will probably nick your money off you anyway, because that's what children... But that's kids, isn't it? So I think all those things...
What about the age then? Because I actually don't remember getting pocket money. I remember just whenever I needed something, I would ask my parents and they'd just give me the money for it. But I don't remember ever getting regular pocket money, even though we used to sort of help them out, sort of their work and everything. But what age do you think is a good age to start giving pocket money, and maybe how much as well?
Yeah, I mean, who am I to say this? And my husband and I had this discussion, and I think Katie started with pocket money at about 10. And so, of course, Natasha wanted to start pocket money bang on 10. It's a bit like, well, Katie had it then. And so I think that's an experiment, depending on the child and how they understand it. And then I think as the child grows older, you will have to extend the kind of relationship you have with them and money. So Katie now has a small allowance, and if she blows it, she could be walking the streets naked. But, you know, that helps her understand. I'm not going to bail her out at that point, and I am not going to just hand it out. Because she understands by now, that's the stuff you buy.
How do you keep so strong with your decisions? And because I think
I'm a cow.
Because a lot of mums would be like, oh, no, I can't say it like that. Let me help her out.
Because long term... Okay, here's your incentive.
Really good.
But here's your incentive. Do you want a child at the age of 16, 17 and 18 who gets themselves a job like I had to with my parents, who I saved up for my first watch and I never looked back. I always kept within a budget and then ran my own company and made money because I understood the value of money. Now, so my long-term incentive to any other parent is, it worked when my parents were hideous to me.
Yeah.
And I sometimes look back and I think, oh God, I'm so like them. And then I think, actually...
But then you thank them for it now, don't you?
How lucky. So that pain has brought us freedom. You know, sensible, and I hope to bring up children who, you know, and I find it a challenge, you know, because I'm now in a very, very privileged position, that there has to be a balance, you know.
There you go, parents, do not be emotional when it comes to your children and money, because it won't work in the long run.
Well, you might bite you in
really
the...
good, yeah. Now, something else, what my parents used to do, I remember, because they never really used to teach me about money, but I would observe everything they used to do. And I would see them get their wages at the end of the week, and they'd sit there and they'd say, okay, they put the money aside. That was for the bills. That's for the food. And that's so I grew up seeing that, and like they never had a credit card before. And then I actually grew up thinking, well, I'm never going to, and I've never actually used a credit card. I've never had a credit card. Instead, I will just like put some savings aside. If I need something, I will only buy it if I have the cash to do it. If not, I'm not going to.
Then you can't afford it.
So I thought that if that was something that they didn't actually sit down and teach me, but it was just through observation and like seeing the way they used to deal with money and how they weren't in debt. They didn't sort of we had like things that we needed.
You bought what you could afford, and I mean, there's that wonderful saying: "You cut your coat according to your cloth." I don't know if you've heard that, but okay, so that's a very old-fashioned saying. I mean, I can spout these for eons, but you know that's really clever. You buy the coat that you can afford, nothing more and nothing less.
Yeah.
And so if you can bring up a child to understand, you know, of course I would like the snazziest tennis racket or the most cool branded training shoes, or I would love to have the best of the best, but actually you can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
And here's the incentive. Natasha loves shoe bags and shoes and handbags. Natasha, you're going to have to get a really good job to afford the things you like.
Well,
and I
really
say that to
that's
her.
Good. Yeah.
So, you know, and like you know, my parents were not lavish with money, and waste, you don't, you know, I think if you're very flash, it's the example you set, is how I would say. But, you know, and also, you know, I'm not sitting here saying I'm the perfect parent. I have, of course, weakened through child bullying, but I regret it, you know, because we do. And, you know, and sometimes actually, oh, sod it, the wheels should come off. And I think you've got to be human, you know, and I hope I find some balance, but my children will be watching this, I guess, at some stage going, she's a witch.
I'm sure they're going to thank you for it. They will definitely thank you for it. I think it's really good, your techniques and everything. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's been a
sharing
pleasure.
your wisdom with us. Okay, so after the break, we're going to be speaking about child street safety. We live in a really dangerous society nowadays. So what's the best way of keeping our little ones safe? So we're going to be joined by Claire Scott-Dryden, founder of Child Alert, to advise us on this topic. welcome back to the Chrissy B Show. Before we speak to our next guest about street safety, take a look at this video.
You've already been told about strangers dressing up in uniforms, but there are other traps you need to know about.
Hi, I lost my little dog. Can you help me find him?
Be suspicious of an adult asking for help.
Hi, I'm just playing with my daughter's video game, but the batteries seem to be dead. I have some in my car. Why don't you come over and help me put them in?
Stay away from people in cars or vans.
Hey kid, how you doing? You know we're making a movie over there. You want to go see it?
Only professional agencies hire kids for TV work. I ought to know.
Hey kid, let's go to the arcade and play some video games. What do you say?
Ignore him and walk away.
Little boy, I'll give you $10 if you'll take my bag to the car for me.
It's okay to say no, even to an adult. Safety is more important than good manners.
Hey kid, I'll teach you how to hit this ball right over the fence. Come on, it'll be fun.
Trust your own feelings.
Your mom's been hurt. She's in the hospital. She sent me to come and get you.
What's the secret code word?
I don't know the code word.
You don't need to get near the car to talk to someone inside.
You know, you look like you could use a friend.
Say no to what you think is wrong.
Pizza delivery. Come on, open the door.
Nothing is more important than your safety.
Hi, you're sure a cute kid. You know, I'm a professional photographer. Why don't you come on, hop in the car. I'll take your picture.
If someone wants to take your picture, say no and tell your parents.
If you tell anybody about our little secret, I'll kill your dog.
Children should never be asked to keep special secrets from their parents.
Okay, that clip is actually going to be on our website as well, so please you can show your children that because it's very important that they watch it. Well, we're now joined by Claire Scott-Dryden, founder of Child Alert, to advise on how kids can be street smart. So good evening, Claire. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening. Nice to be here.
What did you think of the video then?
Well, I've seen that video once before.
Oh, you've seen it?
And
okay.
It's an American video, as you can see. And it's a rather scary video, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think strangers are anything like those as you've seen on that video. Those really do seem like children would run away from them. Mm-hmm. Strangers don't speak that way. Strangers, in terms of maybe being a nuisance to children, are people they probably know, people around the corner, their neighbours, their
How do you
friends.
deal with that though? Because if it's people that the kids know, neighbours, friends, should they still be quite guarded then? Do you think?
Well, I think obviously you need to teach children. What to do. Then you need to teach children to be empowered, basically. Empowered to be able to say no, as the video did say.
Yeah.
And it's not so much about who the stranger is or what they're saying to you, but the child needs to make the choice that's right for them. And I think one of the things that is so important to empower children with is to be able to listen to their own instincts, to their gut feel, and to be able to act on what they're feeling and to make the choice that's right for them. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing to be able to instill in children. And I think the other thing is that if you have a child who really does believe in themselves, they don't want to get in harm's way, and so they want to make sure that they are doing the right thing for them, that they're not going to be harmed, they're not going to get into trouble.
So it's about helping them to be self-confident.
It's about giving them self-esteem. It's about giving them the confidence in themselves and in their ability and in what they think is right for them.
Tell us about Child Alert, which is something that you set up yourself.
Yeah, well, Child Alert was set up actually over 10 years ago now. It was when my daughter was first born, and she's now 13. And it's set up because I decided, I had a life change with having children for the first time. And I'd made a decision at that point that I wanted to have a change in my working life as well. I wanted to work from home. I wanted it to be more flexible. I wanted to be able to have a job that was in keeping with the way my life was going. And the life at that point was having children. As I was making this decision and deciding what route I was going to take, my daughter was probably about 4 months old. And one day she fell down a flight of stairs. Or she must have been a little bit older than that, about 9 months old when she fell down the flight of stairs, and didn't harm herself at all. But it did, it did make me think, you know, why didn't I have a safety gate in place? And I think, you know, I've been to antenatal classes, I'd spoken to many friends who had had children, and no one had actually, we didn't talk about safety gates in those days. We're talking 13 years ago now, and it wasn't quite as open as we are nowadays. And so Childlet set up. It was one of the first parenting sites to come on the web. Certainly there was no other sites talking about child safety, and it's sort of gone from strength to strength.
So you cover things like safety in the house.
Yeah, it's top tips for parents about all angles of safety. It's, you know, articles of advice. It's sort of best practice. We talk through well-being and safety from pregnancy all the way through to toddler safety in the home. And that's really how it first began. It now has moved forward into safety in all sorts of other angles. So we talk about internet safety and mobile phone texting and all the angles that parents worry about.
So everything maybe that some parents may not even think of is covered there.
Child safety is very much common sense.
Yeah.
But until you actually have a situation in front of you or are made to think about it more clearly, parents don't always put into practice what they would normally think they should do.
Okay. Well, Claire, I know we've got a couple of emails from some concerned parents. Let's go to Amelia and hear what she's got to say.
Okay, we have here Lisa from North London. She asks, at what age do you recommend children to travel by themselves? I know it depends on many factors, but in general, when they start secondary school?
My dad was still dropping me off when I was in secondary school. He didn't let me out of his sight. So my parents were quite sort of protective, even though we only used to live around the corner. But I remember, like, every single day he would walk me to school, drop me just by the corner, and then he would watch me actually go into school. And I think I was in my early teens as well.
No, I certainly believe that parents do need to give independence to their children. And my daughter first started walking to school when she was probably about 11, so she was in year 6. I think that's a good time to give them a bit of independence.
It's a bit scary.
It is scary.
Imagine,
it's scary for parents.
They're under your roof, like for however many years, and like you've got that control to a certain extent. But then I can imagine how scary it must be to take your child for the first time to school, and now they're with other people. You don't know those people.
I think whatever the situation, wherever there's a change, it's very important that parents don't show their anxiety. I mean, we really do need to give allow children to have a bit of choice and independence. And I think 11 is about the right age, depending on where they're going and where they have to travel in order to get to school. Nowadays, of course, everybody carries a mobile phone, which can be a good thing. It can be not so good, but it does mean you can be in contact should there be any troubles. But certainly when my daughter first went to school, I used to follow her behind. She probably doesn't even know that. I used to
know now.
I used to, be sort of 5 paces behind and hide behind cars just to see how things were going on. But she managed very well, and certainly she wouldn't walk to school on her own. She always went with a friend.
Friends, right?
And and made sure that she came back with a friend. But it's important to give them some independence. So I think 11 or 12 is about the right age.
Okay, we've got one more email, Amelia.
Yes, we do. We have Rai from London. How can I train my child on what to do if she gets lost in a shopping centre or in the streets? What is the best way to deal with this?
Gosh, that's every mother's nightmare, isn't it? Being in
Absolutely.
a crowded place and
Absolutely.
then turning around and your child's gone. That's horrible.
Oh, it's the most anxious moment, isn't it? But I think you do need to talk to your children wherever you take them out. They obviously depends on the age of the child, of course, but a small toddler must never leave your side. But I think it's important to tell children that they need to go and find someone in uniform, or perhaps a shopkeeper. They need to be able to know where to go to ask advice, really, if they get lost. Actually, what I say to my younger daughter is that, if you're to get lost, you stay put. Don't move. I will come back and find you. But that doesn't really happen. She tends to wander off. But I think if you can, it's important, if you can just tell them to go to a shopkeeper and stay there until either a tannoid calls you or you eventually retrace your steps, I think that's the best thing.
Okay. So it's best to sort of really sit down and speak with your child about it and make sure they understand, maybe get them to, okay, what do you do in this case? But I was just thinking as well...
It's good, it's important to make them to be able to, they can recite their name. It depends on the age of the child. Know what their address is in case they're asked where to, well, not by a stranger, of course, but by a policeman or a shopkeeper. But I don't think, a mother would never leave if it was in a shopping centre,
vicinity,
yeah. Until you found, you know.
How can you teach children about safety then, but without making them really paranoid? Because obviously you want to instill as much as you can in them and like say, you know, be careful of this, be careful of that. If this happens, you maybe do this, this and this. But how do you actually do that in a way that you're not making them frightened of everyone around them?
Well, a few years ago I used to go and lecture or talk to schools and also do talks to mothers outside of schools. And I'll never forget this one mother that stood up at the back and she said, you know, life was terrible and, you know, she wouldn't let her children outside of the gate of her garden, and they went to travel down the street. And I said, well, how old are your children? And she said they were teenagers. And really what I feel about someone who has so much anxiety as a parent that they're making their children feel a victim before they've even had a chance to live life. And it's so important not to put your anxieties upon your children. What we should be doing is holding those back and empowering our children to be street smart by listening to their instincts, by believing in themselves, by having the confidence, by, you know, being curious and having empathy with the surroundings. What we tend to do nowadays, we have so many busy things to do in life. We're moving from A to B, we're juggling all sorts of things. We've got mobile phones in our hands, that we tend to walk down streets without even realising that maybe change happening around us or people who we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is slow down, try to you know, encourage our children to be aware of their surroundings, to aware of the changes that are taking place, to listen to their instincts, to react on their gut feel, and be positive about and curious, and then they'll realise that, you know, if danger is around the corner, they will step the other way.
Because what say if you had maybe like a say 10-year-old and under, and you'd like to teach them sort of some basic safety skills, street safety skills, what would you? And you know, they're not with their parents, they're maybe at school or on their way to school and back. What would be like maybe the most important tips that you would tell them?
Well, I think road safety is one of the biggest fears I think any parent might have. And it's not just because the child may not be being alert, but drivers are, you know, recklessly driving. Children have all sorts of gadgets and friends that they're chatting to, and all sorts of distractions that they have at hand when they're trying to go from A to B. So I think a lesson certainly when walking as a young child on their own is to teach them good road etiquette and good road safety. So that's important. It's not to talk to strangers, to be aware of what's happening around you, because if you know, there are a gang of people on a corner, you should be able to cross the road and move in the other direction. It's really just being aware of your situation and concentrating on what you're doing and not being distracted by other things.
Okay, so it's really important because, like I said, we've got like the MP3 players now, and like a lot of kids, I see them with their music on, and like they're not paying attention, or they're very young children now. They've got their phones and everything as well. So I think if I was a parent, I think I would definitely tell my child not to be on the phone. No, exactly. Like to and from.
But I do like my children having phones. I like them, and I like teaching them to, you know, to ring me as they are leaving a certain point, so I know that they are going to their next place or they're coming home, and we can sort of time them as to, you know, how much it would take them to go from A to B. Okay. So phones are an important thing, but there mustn't be a distraction.
Okay. Okay, tell us what you're working on at the moment.
Well, I'm always juggling lots of different things. So Child Alerts, as I say, has been going on for a good 10 or 13 years. I also work for KidStart. KidStart is a website which allows parents to shop do their regular shopping at their regular retailers through ourselves, and every time they spend, they get something back which goes into a savings account for their child.
Oh, great. That's excellent.
It's a wonderful way for parents to begin to save a little bit, put something aside for their children. Whether it's for the next birthday or for the future, and I recommend every parent joins.
Okay, that's lovely. All right, Claire, thanks so much for joining us and for your advice as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Nice
so
to be
after
here.
the break as well, we're going to be learning about manners and etiquette, because that's also very important for our children, because let's face it, things aren't quite like they used to be before. So we're going to be joined by a guest who's going to be explaining all about that. See you then. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show. Before we speak about manners and etiquette, let's go to our places to visit. Barbara and I visited a very nice toy museum, and Barbara got into trouble, and you'll see why. Hi everyone, we're outside the Museum of Childhood in Bethnal Green. So what better way to visit the past than by coming to somewhere like this? Now, every young boy in the 80s must have had one of these, right? I wanted one of these, actually. Hey, where's my money? It's just all of my 20p. The early Star Wars figures there. Care Bears. And do you remember Sooty and Sweep and Sue? I have the power. It's moving, it's moving, it's moving. Look how chubby she was there and look how skinny she is now. So that was a blast from the past, and Barbara, Barbara got told off for getting on the rocking horse. Apparently it's just for children, although there was no sign saying that adults cannot sit on the rocking horses, but I suppose it was a bit obvious, really.
Well, yeah, you think it's obvious, but I didn't know, and I tried, and then I got told off quite badly, but anyway, oh well.
Oh, Barbara, we're always guaranteed an adventure when we go out with Barbara. But anyway, let's talk to our next guest, which is Claire. Hi, Claire. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me what you do at the moment.
Well, at the moment, I'm training to become an Ofsted registered childminder, which came about after I did some NLP and hypnotherapy training. It was a lot of personal development and self-development course, which I did basically to try and better myself to be a better mum to my daughter.
How old's your daughter?
She's 7, almost 8. She's lovely. So yeah, I decided, because I wanted that work-life balance, and because I discovered what I really wanted to do, and that's look after kids. I love kids, and yeah, I've kind of got the same, attitude as a child, really. So,
how was it growing up for you? Did your parents sort of instill sort of good manners and stuff in you from an early age?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you remember what they used to teach you?
Yeah, they still do it now.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been about manners. It's always been, if you're out of the house or in the house, you act like a proper person. You go out and you respect others, and you don't shout, and you stand nicely, and that's it. That's how it always was. We didn't know any different, so that's what we did. And at home, we were supposed to respect each other and keep quiet. It might have been a little bit different in real life, but no, that's just how it was. Our mum and dad were who we looked up to and who we showed the most respect to, and that's just what was expected, so that's what we did.
It's so different nowadays though, because sometimes I'm like in a supermarket or something, and some of the toddlers, like they're not even like 4 or 5 yet. I've heard some of them swearing at their mums, or they have these little. Well, I suppose like toddlers do that sometimes, you know, when they like go on the floor and scream and stuff. But just the way that I've seen children speaking to their parents, it's horrible, and I just don't understand how, first of all, parents allow them to speak that way, or if they can control that. So what would you advise parents that have got kids that are just really disrespectful?
I think, and this is only in my opinion, but I think today parents are so stressed that that's how they speak to their children. So it's no wonder that that's how the children are speaking. I think parents have got a lot to deal with these days. It is a lot different to when sort of we were growing up. My mum was always at home, and so she didn't work. I mean, yeah, being an at-home mum is stressful, but there was no mobile phones, there was no this, there was no that. It was less stressful. There was less money worries. There were very little credit cards, very little loans for people to get in trouble with. There was money troubles, but not like there is today. I think parents and adults have built them up so much that there is so much negativity and so much stress in their lives that that's what they're feeding down to their kids. So the smallest thing, like, can I have some sweets? No, you can't. And they are swearing, getting upset, getting angry, because that's what they see. That's what they understand.
That's a really interesting point. I wouldn't have thought of it like that. I was just thinking maybe it's because of, their children go to school and they see the way their friends behave and they disrespect the teachers and stuff, so they're just copying. But it's true what you're saying, because if the parents are very stressed, and actually, to be fair as well, I have also witnessed parents being really horrible to their children. It's like, oh my God, how can you talk to your child like that? They just swear at them, but really awful language. Yeah. And the child's not doing anything really bad. They maybe just sort of walked off a little way, just picked up some sweets or something, and that's it. But they really speak in such a horrible tone to their children sometimes. I can't believe it. It's
I think
horrible.
As well, because the parents, some parents have it great. They really do have, if they work at it, if they really want that ideal, perfect, Walton family life, where everyone gets on, then they need to work towards it. But
How do you think they can do that?
I think they need to really focus on what it is they want, and what it is that they want for their child. I mean, every parent will do what's best, or what they think at the time is best for their child. But if they're coming home at sort of 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then they're on the computer for the rest of the evening doing work, they're up at 6 on the phone, is that really giving the best to their child? Yes, we have to work, but yes, we do need to find that balance. And I think, just from my own experience, I've done the whole getting up at 6 and going out to work and coming home at 9. It's not fair on her, it's not fair on me, because I feel like a part-time child and a part-time parent and a full-time employee. That's not how it should be, which is why I'm now doing what I'm doing, and I'm making it so that I can pass these tools on to other parents and to the children, to learn that, sometimes mummy and daddy are going to be stressed, or nanny or whoever looks after you is going to come home and they're going to be a little bit grumpy. That's okay. Let them do that. You don't have to be grumpy. You can do this instead. And it's about giving children tools to understand that there are going to be some horrible things, but it's about how it's about how they incorporate it. They can take it on the chin and think, okay, you know what, they're having an off day, or they can think, well, mummy's stressed, so I'm going to sort of kick and scream, and you will find that the one day you're having the worst day, your kids will play up. They will play up.
They pick up on it, don't they? They
exactly.
They know. So say, for example, you do have the work-life balance kind of right, if that's possible, really, to have it really like on the ball. You know, you're spending time at home. Things are going well with your kids. What are the key things that you would teach them about etiquette and manners?
Etiquette and manners, I think...
What's the difference, first of all?
Well, I do think they're quite different. I think etiquette is your pleases, your thank yous, your not interrupting people when they speak. You know, it's your day-to-day way you live. Whether people choose to... Other people around you are using that as well. It doesn't matter. If you're using it, then that's important. I think manners is more of an emotional and a physical thing. I think manner is the way you carry yourself, so the way that you want people to portray you. And it's not important what people think of you, but it is important how you want people to think, or what you want people to think of you when you're out. So it is about opening that door. It is, and letting someone through. It is about being...
God, you don't see that anymore much, do you?
I know, but we
but
should.
It's so nice when you do, though.
Exactly.
It really is, because sometimes you go, if, for example, if someone gets up for you to sit down, we're like, okay. It's nice, lovely. I think it's really nice, but it's like very rare nowadays, and it shouldn't be.
It should be
even
happening.
Just a smile.
And how many people today would appreciate someone standing back and opening the door?
Yeah.
That would make their day. Yet it doesn't happen because they didn't do it for me. Why should I do it for them? And if every one person just did one thing, whether it's a child, an adult, or whatever, then
that's very true.
It makes a difference.
Okay, let's see if Amelia's got any emails for us.
We've got a comment here from Janice. She comes from Cardiff, and she says, "I'm shocked at the bad language being used by the kids in the streets. I believe it comes down to parents setting a good example. It also helps to surround themselves with people who have similar value as us. When my kids were very young, I made sure they said please and thank yous for everything. Once I established a firm foundation, I just added more guidelines as they got older."
Okay, so back to the swearing thing. I think that's a concern for many people.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit about the manners then. So the etiquette is the please, the thank yous, and what about the manners?
The manners, I think, is having respect for yourself and having confidence in yourself, and about the way you portray yourself. With regards to a child, I would say with my daughter, I give her the allowance to do what she thinks is right. So if there's something she's not sure about, she'll say, or she'll ask if she can do something. It's like, okay, you can do that, and this is what's going to happen, either this or this. So she has the choice, and she knows. Now, it could be anything, but I think we need to give them the chance to do it. At the end of the day, they're small and they're young, but they're the mini adult. They're mini adults. They are. And I think a lot of respect today is to do with us giving respect to children. They're instantly branded. From the minute they're born, they're toddlers. Toddlers are going to scream. They're terrible to... And we expect it. So when it happens, we allow it to happen. The minute they're teenagers, they're hoodies. And
it's really true what you're saying. Society's
this
perceptions,
is just my
isn't
opinion.
it? No, but it makes sense, because sometimes when we expect things to happen, or expect children, for example, to behave in a certain way, we sometimes change our own behaviour in preparation for that, and we kind of bring about that behaviour in a sense. So that could happen as well, but we do kind of expect, but it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't
have to be if we teach them, and it's very true.
I think they just need to be given a chance. At the end of the day, we could be bringing up the future, you don't know, the future president, the future, I don't know, whatever. But if we've not given them the chance, then we're never going to know. And they're not going to have the chance to sort of exceed their abilities. And
okay, great advice from you, Claire, tonight. Thank you so much. We have run out of time, but we will be back again on the Chrissy B Show next time. I hope you've really benefited from that, and I'm sure, if, for example, you have friends and family that are parents, maybe you can let them know as well about the show being on the website in a couple of days, and it's also going to be on YouTube channel as well. But let's just give you the website address. It's chrissybshow.tv. And if you want to email in with any ideas, maybe there's a topic that you'd like to see us discussing here on the sofa, you can also email me directly, chris@chrissybshow.tv. We're going to leave you this funny video, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye for now.
Do the evil eyes, man. Give him the evil look. Real quick.